You know his IRC link, and perhaps we can link him
Yeah,
to
yeah,
the
you got the link
hangout.
already. Should be
I think we're
joining.
online. So, welcome to the second session of this online summit about scopes. This time it's basically general question and answer round. So we have here right next to me, or second next to me, Pavel, who is a scope expert directly developing the framework. We have Mikuláš here working for or being a community member, and we have Christian here from the SDK team. There is no specific agenda for this meeting. It's really like, shoot any questions you have regarding scopes at us. We will try to answer. Hopefully we'll be able to answer all your questions. But feel free. You decide basically the agenda of this meeting, and just use the IRC as always. Uppercase questions. I will bring it in, and then we will answer. So, we already have some questions.
I don't see any yet. I could go if you want at the moment.
Sure.
Okay, so yeah, so the thing is, like, a few days back I had the opportunity to go on a road trip and take the Touch phone and use the scopes for it, and it was amazing. The way it exposed the content was really nice. I was able to find new places because of it, and I'm just wondering, like, what's the next big feature for scopes that you guys have in mind?
So the direction we're currently going is or a couple of things we have on the roadmap. So one thing is we want to enable you to further refine your search, and that will be done by being able to use filters. So filters in the sense as you might know from any online shop. So specifying all kind of parameters to help you finding content. So that's one thing. The other part that we are investigating is some kind of customization of scopes. So allowing you as a consumer to customize your scopes in a way, saying like, well, I want to reorder categories because some I'm more interested in than others. Also allowing you to kind of favor contents. So think of the scope like a dashboard, whatever. You can have one section that is your favorites on every scope, and then you can just drag and drop basically results there, and you have it always right in front of your face. So it's a little bit like bookmarking in some way, but we want to put that a little bit on steroids if possible, so that those items might then even update. So while on the classical web sense, if you do a bookmark, then that bookmark might or might not be alive anymore. But for scopes, we need to be a little bit smarter in a sense, like if you bookmark today's weather, for example, right? You don't want to bookmark really today's weather as today, but rather a alias for that, right? Otherwise, it's quite useless. So that's the kind of things we're currently researching and trying to come up with good solutions to enable that.
Yeah, and let's not forget what was presented yesterday, which is a keyword-based aggregation, which has just been developed, but it's still not in use, and it's going to be used by more and more scopes. Yeah, and that should change how the aggregators work and improve the experience even more.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, right now I have so many scopes which are added, and most of them are just singular scope. And the thing is, it would be nice to sort of see them aggregated into one scope. Yeah, the thing is, like, so with the today's scope, for instance, that's one of the perfect example of an aggregated scope where you have all sorts of information that you need right at your hand tip. The one issue that I've sort of had with that is that it doesn't update frequently unless I pull to refresh. So, for instance, if it's tomorrow, then I have to pull it manually. Is there a plan where it does it automatically? Like, yeah, because I mean, the thing is, like, sometimes you don't notice it, and you just you don't realize that you're looking at old data, maybe a day before or something like that. So yeah.
So it's a complicated problem to solve, as stupid as it sounds, because it's a fine balancing act. Like, when do you query and requery? Because some queries, especially like if you have a lot of scopes being aggregated, might be quite expensive in terms of network traffic and stuff. So what scope authors can do right now is they can basically define something like a TTL parameter, where we allow kind of values, placeholder values, saying like, short amount of time, medium or long term kind of time to live. We don't specify that in seconds because we want to keep the option to ourselves to adapt the values depending what people choose actually. And we would apply that parameter if we show a scope. So in theory, if it's not a bug, it should actually update if you just go to the next scope page after the today's scope and go back. Then it should actually update as well, because then exactly those TTL parameters will kick in. Maybe if you say like, what we're not doing is that we do not trigger a new search if TTL is expired when you come back from the greeter. So maybe that's something that would already fix it. But otherwise, it's we cannot just query things, and the scopes by the architecture is it's a query framework. So you do something based on a query. So if we would allow scopes to query themselves, that's a little bit like upside down, which would cause some issues as well. So yeah, I think we need to look into that. It sounds more like a bug report if it doesn't update within a day than it's on purpose.
Okay. And like the way I see it right now, the scopes, they surface the data to the user and people can explore new kinds of stuff. And right now what's shown in the scopes is more of a preview of the whole data. So is there a plan where you guys can perhaps expose actions? Like for instance, let's say I find an article on the BBC scope that I like to share with my friends on Facebook or Twitter. Is there a plan where you guys can just like expose a share button where I can just click on share and then perhaps add a few lines of text and then post it to Twitter?
That's what we're doing right now as well. So there will be some very easy actions. So like share something, like something, or dislike something, make a quick review. Those kind of three things are something we're currently working on. So that will be doable via the preview. Not sure. Probably 6 weeks, something like that at latest. Then we should have something. But it will be really limited to those kind of basic things. So nothing more sophisticated. We don't want to enter the application world as such, and don't blur the line. So it would be something very easy. The other thing, maybe related to your question, is like depending what content you have. If you look at a picture, you look at the picture, but you only get the preview, and then you have to click in the preview, like show image, etc. That's also not most streamlined. So we're also working on allowing users to consume the content, if we know the content, in a more easy manner. So if you click on a video, on a picture, or music, then you will launch basically the players or show the picture immediately instead of going through the preview. That should also help you getting a better experience.
Okay. Yeah, and another question I had was like in Unity 7, right? We had this home scope where you can enter a search term and then it'll search for all possible data sources that you can expose to the user. And for some period of time, I saw this on the phone, and then after a while, it was gone. Is there a plan to bring it back, or it's something that it's impossible to sort of provide a search results for a generic term? Is that difficult?
So it was never ever on the phone. That feature.
Maybe in the very early stage, but for very short period. I'm not sure.
Yeah. I think it wasn't the end.
What we had in between is that it seemed like it was the same, but instead of giving you actual search results, it would propose you scopes you might be finding for the content in your search. So that was in for a certain period of time. We are currently, it's not like planned to have something like that. I think to some degree it makes sense. Like if you say like I want to search my content for something, but then it would be like you would have to say it's my content, something I own, and we would restrict the search to that. If we would just go out and search in the world, as we did also in Unity 7, and there was a setting that prevented that, then some people feel like, hey, my search term goes anywhere where I don't even have a control where it ends up, right? So that's why we had a privacy setting in Unity 7, or have one for that. But I think the more optimal ways, if we just make it in a way that we wouldn't require such a setting, but make it very obvious where we would search. So from that point of view, I think if we implement such a feature, then the difference between the searches would be really like, is it the content I own, or is it some content like that might be anywhere in the world, but then I'm aware that I'm contacting whatever servers, which I might not even know.
Yeah. So previously the approach was that you were opted in by default and you chose to opt out, and that's what I think upset people. So if we were to take this approach again, it would be the other way around, rather than to opt into certain sources of data in this global search. It's kind of a touchy subject that we'll have to be careful with.
Yeah, I think in general we want people to be conscious about what they want to search and let them pick what they want, and with the new customization options, etc., that Thomas mentioned in the beginning, I think it's more like we expect you to pick the sources you want, and then you maybe create your own home screen where you have the sources you want to be searched.
Okay. So yeah, I think I might be mixing up the terminology here. Like right now, like in the phone, you have the app scope and you have the today scope. So what are the elements inside the scope called themselves? Like you have different data sources in a scope, right? In an aggregated scope, do you have like previously on the desktop it was called lenses and scopes, where lenses was the one which showed the information, and the scopes were the one where the data sources were retrieved from. Because
I'm not sure I got the question, but yeah, we basically got rid of the lens term. It's just scopes right now, and scopes can aggregate other scopes. So a scope can be a data source for another scope.
Okay. Yeah, I had a question in mind, but I sort of blanked out. I kind of forgot what I wanted to ask. Yeah, let's. If there's anybody else who have any questions, please go ahead.
Nothing on the IRC, as I can see. Nope. Christian, any questions from your side?
Not really. You basically answered what I would have asked about. Do you have any other points in or hints in terms of current development, such as what you mentioned, what you're working on at the moment, what's going to be introduced?
So I think the next things is about the kind of social media interaction. That's one thing. Then we will hopefully have net filters, and along with that we are also working on customizations in parallel. So those are really the next things within the next 2 to 3 months. That's roughly the timeline.
Actually, yes, I do have a question regarding that sharing feature. So will it make use of the Content Hub functionality, or how will that work?
Yes.
So, for instance, if I have a scope and want to, well, I'm looking, say, at a picture and I want to put it on Dropbox using the drop command app as an example.
Yes, it will completely follow the platform guidelines utilizing Content Hub. Yeah.
Oh, we have a question there.
We do.
Stuart is asking, the idea of scopes being written in JavaScript was floated a while back. Is that likely to happen, or is it basically C++ and not very well documented to go for the foreseeable future?
Currently, yes. So no concrete plans to have the JavaScript bindings up and running within the next 4 months. So C++, yes, and Go bindings will be more enhanced in terms to be able to write aggregator scopes, at least for us internally. That's what's coming within the next couple of weeks. If you're saying like it's not very well documented, then we need to address that. In which terms, like API-wise, or is it just in general how to get started writing a Go scope, or how to build it, how to deploy it? What do you refer to?
I suspect from my own personal experience, it may, to begin with, be the fact that it's not yet in the and available through Q Creator. At least that was my biggest hurdle. I wanted to play with a Go scope and wasn't really sure how to set it up correctly, and basically start looking into putting things together sort of in a hackish way. So that would probably be pretty nice if that's going to be added soon, and I think that's somewhere on the roadmap.
Okay, so it's less about the API itself and more about the general, like how to create a project, how to set it up.
Yeah,
how
at
to
least
compile it in
it was the impression for me. So I felt at least it wasn't too hard to get the idea of the API from example, and that yeah. So for me, it was basically how to actually get it running was slightly tricky. Yes.
Okay, right. So, but the Go stuff will be strengths anyway. So working on it. Do we have more questions?
Yeah, I had a question. I read in the documentation that you can't have one particular scope being able to access both the local resources and resources online. Is there a particular reason why that was implemented? Like, was there a need for such a restriction?
Yes, that's a security. The reason is security. If you basically have a scope that can do both, then you can ship out potentially information from your phone.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, like, I was thinking perhaps if you are creating, for instance, a to-do scope which exposes the notes that you have or the to-do tasks that you have from the application database, and then while at the same time, I don't know, maybe it wants to expose the to-do notes from another service, then you would have an aggregated scope. But the thing is, that aggregated scope can only access the local data, or it has to make a choice. So yeah, I
Right.
thought.
So let's put it that way. That's also the reason why we currently only allow ourselves and then OEMs to write aggregators, because in aggregators you actually do aggregate sometimes local and remote content, like for the music scope where you display your local music, but also potentially things like from 7 Digital. Yeah, so it's only currently with us for those reasons to be able to make such kind of scopes.
Okay.
So
If I would insert a teaser at this point, we have been thinking about the possibility of user-created aggregators, where if you wanted to make two scopes, like you said, one that's local, one that's connected to the network, and then you could create an aggregator that aggregates both of those from the UI. I say teaser, and I'm not saying when this will become available, but this we have started discussing this possibility.
Okay, nice to know.
There is next question from Aquarius again. There's a neat little desktop utility which can host a scope and let you test it. I think this is referring to Unity scope tool, but it doesn't exist for 14.04. Can it be backported? The SDK is supposed to run on 14.04 as well, and writing and testing scope is way easier with that little utility. Yeah, I agree about the usefulness of that utility, but I'm not sure if there's anything any plan for backporting, and the reason is it basically requires entire stack to be backported. It's not just the utility. It's basically the Scopes API and the Unity 8 and Unity 8 plugin. This tool is part of the Unity 8 shell project, so that would require quite some effort to backport everything.
Sorry, are we talking about the Unity Scope tool?
Yeah, I think so.
As far as I knew, it was available in Utopic.
It's about 14.04.
Trusty Tahar.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
I see. You want it back into 14.04. Okay. Yeah.
So I don't know. Again, I don't know of any plans. If anyone knows, correct me.
I imagine it may, at least in principle, be something to look into once Qt Creator actually has taken the step towards being packaged as a whole for older releases. So that may make it easier at the point where the complete XDK actually includes all the components and Qt Creator and Qt as well. So that may make it more feasible.
So SDK team has a PPA, right?
Yes.
Is it meant to be used on top of 14.04? Could it be used to?
Yeah, I'm using desktop.
Okay.
But
So
I don't receive new Qt versions in it. It's more related to the Qt Creator Ubuntu plugin and the click reviews too. That's pretty much it, which comes in the PPA.
Okay, I think there is another question. What is the recommended behavior when there are no results from a scope query? Empty list, dummy result, or is there alert box method somewhere? No, there is no alert, or it's basically up to the scope author what he thinks makes sense. So for example, just recently we enhanced the video and music scopes in a way which, if you have no local content on the device, like you boot the device for the first time and there are no results to show, and the scopes look really boring, were looking really boring by default. So what we made is we display a large welcome kind of card to encourage you to upload files, etc. So yeah, as I said, it's really up to the scope to decide. And as Marcus yesterday explained also, now that with the recent additions to Scopes API, the scope can know when it's aggregated or not. So in that case, the scope can also decide if, when it's aggregated, if it should show any dummy or get started welcome kind of results if there's no content to surface. I hope that answers the question.
So do we have more questions?
So, okay, I got a question regarding the usage of scopes on the desktop. Like right now on the phone, if you want to switch between scopes, like if you have quite a number of scopes, then swiping across them is not really the fastest way. So we use the bottom edge to switch to another scope really quick. And on the desktop, what's going to happen? Like obviously, the bottom edge may not make perfect sense on the desktop. So are you guys going to give the users the capability to perhaps move the scope into the launcher, in the sidebar at the left, so that we can pin scopes perhaps?
Yes, pinning scopes will be possible. I mean, that's part of the customization as well. So that for sure. How exactly the scopes will be then exposed in the shell is something we're still thinking. So, we have the ideas how to scale the layouts and make those responsive depending on real estate, screen real estate, etc. That's currently all in design phase. So I think it's a little bit too early to, being able to really say how that will look like. But we're having it. We're working on it. So
Okay.
yeah, should have it autumn somewhere, hopefully. Any more questions?
Yeah, I can't think of any.
Yeah. Do we have more on the RC? Ah,
One more.
There is. There is a question from Aquarius, which is scopes can be from with a scope URL. For example, scopes colon, the machine versus machines application link. Is this guaranteed to work for all scopes? Which parameters can be passed other than Q? Is this documented anywhere, or it's a secret hack thing?
So I can answer that one. It's not a URI that's understood by the desktop. The desktop, at least not now. It's not really possible to launch it in the browser. So I'm not sure where it's coming from. This kind of URI is currently understood only by the shell internally, and it's understood by the scopes who can produce results that can point to different scopes. The scope developer should never be really dealing with that raw kind of URI. We have high-level helper for that in the API, and it's a can't query class. The same thing exists in the Go bindings, for example. So whenever you receive such a URI, or you want to create such a URI pointing to different scope, you should really only be using can't query class, and it just wraps everything and hides the serialization detail of the URI, etc., etc. So the Q, for example, in this string is a search string. There is also a parameter, optional parameter, which is a department ID that's part of the query. And when we have filters, the filters will be serialized there, etc. But as I said, you should never deal with that kind of string directly anywhere.
There's at least one current use case though, which is the unofficial app store, which is using this type of URL to actually open scopes. So you can install apps from it.
Where is it again?
The unofficial app store, which is
Oh,
packaged.
the unofficial. Okay, then
Yeah.
they are doing something unofficial. I didn't know about that.
So that's basically opening the scopes this way, and then you're able to install apps, which are all from the official store, obviously, but just you have a different way to access them and browse them.
Okay. And this store is a web app, correct?
Yep, yep. So it
Okay,
only
okay.
works on the phone. If you do this anywhere else, you the links won't work.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Okay, but as I said, it's kind of implementation detail that no one should really depend on or assume anything. We will, of course, try to keep it stable, but if you develop scopes, it's best to use can't query class. There are some you might see some examples where, for example, scope authors use the strings directly in tests, unit tests for the scopes. That should also really use a wrapper class rather than produce the strings directly. But yeah.
Oh, do we have more questions?
Three more.
No more? Do we have more on RSC?
No, I mean, Aquarius is just continuing on the question that he asked before regarding the custom URLs that you can use for every scope.
Okay. So seems an RSC discussion rather than another. So the topic on the RSC is basically going further down the road on like what kind of URLs you might be able to put in your browser, and then the shell basically executes scopes based on that.
Yeah, short answer is it's not supported. Rather not try to use that.
Okay. So if there are no more questions, we can close the session. 3, 2, 1.